What's going on, folks? Zach from Uchuu Shelf here. Hope you guys are doing good and reading lots of manga. Today I want to talk about a manga that I've always wanted to collect, a manga that I've always wanted to read, but it's either stupidly out of print, really expensive, or it's just taking forever to come out. And if you can't tell by the manga sitting on the shelf behind me, that is Hiroya Oku's GANTZ. Now, GANTZ is a massive manga, has 37 volumes, over 300 chapters, and it's split into 3 different phases. So there's phase 1, which are the missions, phase 2, the Katastrophe, and phase 3, which is the invasion. And because GANTZ is such a large manga, I'm going to have to split my review of it up into 2 videos. So the first one, this video here, is going to be covering phase 1 of the manga, where the next video, whenever that comes out, is going to be covering phases 2 and 3. But let's not waste any time. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, the premise of GANTZ is actually pretty straightforward. When you die, you're transported to an empty room that is solely inhabited by a massive black ball. In addition to weapons and a special suit, the black ball will give you a mission to go out and kill an alien. Now, depending on how well you do and how many aliens you kill, at the end of the mission, you're awarded a certain amount of points. And when you earn 100 points, you actually get one of 3 options. So you either get to revive yourself and free yourself of this horrible, horrible game. You can get an extremely powerful weapon to aid you in fighting more aliens in other missions. Or you can revive someone else who has died during a GANTZ mission. The story follows Kei Kurono, who's this 15-year-old antisocial, kind of shitty kid, who on his way home one night notices that a drunken homeless man has fallen onto the train tracks below. Now, luckily, also on this platform is his childhood friend Masaru Kato, who immediately jumps down to help the homeless man. Unfortunately, he's not strong enough to help the homeless man back up onto the platform, so he calls out to Kei to come down and give him a hand. Feeling kind of a social pressure to do so with everybody looking at him, Kei jumps down onto the tracks, the two of them hoist the homeless man up onto the platform, and with no time to pull themselves up onto the platform, they decide to make a run for it and see if they can outrun the train and maybe get around the corner and hide in a little alcove or something. Unfortunately, just due to the laws of physics, the two of them don't outrun the train and unfortunately are hit by it and killed. And in an almost immediate transition, the two wake up in an empty room with the single black ball that is known as GANTZ. Over the course of the first phase, Kei and Kato are thrown into a wide variety of missions against increasingly powerful aliens. Along with a wide range of characters, including a young woman who is also called Kei and a young middle school veteran of GANTZ called Nishi, they must all work together against the oftentimes impossible power of these aliens to avoid their own deaths, soon learning that death might not only be inevitable, but quite frankly, preferred. Especially to the very violent, very harrowing situations that these characters find themselves in. Now, prior to binge reading GANTZ, I had only ever seen the anime, and I know the anime doesn't cover even a fraction of some of the crazy shit that goes down in this manga. Like, the anime itself was just insane, but the manga makes the anime look like a kid show at some points. Like, there were so many things that were left out of the anime, most likely due to the fact that the manga was still ongoing at the time, but man, there's just so many, like, there's psychics, there's vampires, there's dinosaurs, there's a mass shooting. That's just a couple of the things that make this manga so bloody crazy that would have just been awesome to see animated. Maybe we'll get to see a reboot of the GANTZ anime in the future. I'm not going to hold my breath for that, though. But every time you're reading a part of this manga that makes you go, whoa, that was nuts, it kind of manages to outdo itself by a factor of 1,000,000. Now, fair warning before I get into my thoughts and review of this manga, I am not holding back any spoilers. The manga has been out for quite some time. It's been finished for a few years now. I want to talk about a lot of it. I tried to do it in a way that wasn't very spoilery, but the more I wrote, the more I realized that's not going to happen. So fair warning, there's going to be a lot of spoilers from this point forward. Now, the first 3 arcs in which they fight the Onion Alien, the Tanaka Alien, and the Buddhist Temple Aliens are all pretty straightforward and play right into the concept of GANTZ. Without warning, you're brought to the room, you're given your mission, you get your weapons, you go fight the aliens, you come back, you get your points, you go about your day in the real world. However, the beginning of Hiroya Oku just laying subversion after subversion down pretty much begins right in the middle towards the end of the Buddhist Temple arc, when he flat out kills 90% of the main characters, especially 2 very, very important characters, especially in terms of relationships to the main character, Kei. Now, these deaths aren't just killing people for the sake of killing people, although it kind of seems like that with GANTZ at times. These deaths help to propel Kei's character forward. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, he's kind of a shitty little 15-year-old. He's just very antisocial. He doesn't care for anyone talking to him. There's a scene at the beginning where there's like an old person talking to him, and he's just like, God damn, why are you talking to me? Don't talk to me, ever. That makes you, like, not even want to like him. But through these missions, he becomes more caring, introspective, and open. He ends up dating one of his classmates by the name of Tai Kojima, and despite his previous inclinations to gravitate towards women with absolutely massive breasts, he finds himself falling in love with Tai for her personality and her kind-hearted nature. The next mission against the shorty alien is essentially where the story takes off after the anime. And it's his first mission without being able to rely on the friends he's relied on up to this point. Now, prior to this arc, I had assumed that all of the missions that happen in GANTZ sort of happen in this subset universe, this pocket universe, universe that exists on the same plane of reality but kind of separate from the general public. But in true Hiroya Oku fashion of upping the ante and subverting everything he's already built so far, the shorty alien manages to find Kei in real life and cause a whole ton of mayhem that calls for the military to actually come in and intervene. Now, at this point in the manga, I was already a huge fan of GANTZ. I loved the anime, I loved what I've been reading of the manga, I loved seeing where the story goes after the anime ends, but the dinosaur alien mission arc genuinely, honestly, really sold me on this manga. Pretty much all of my favorite characters get introduced in this arc. Most notably, Muscle Rider and Sakurai and Sakata, the two psychics. This arc begins with Shion Izumi, who was a previous participant in the GANTZ missions. During his time in GANTZ, he had earned 100 points and he decided to revive himself and wipe his memories clean of ever having experienced that. However, he finds a website where he's able to infer that he was once a participant in these missions, and he begins to kind of pine to want to go back into that. And not only does he get obsessed with GANTZ, he finds through the website that Kei Kurono is also a part of GANTZ, and he becomes obsessed with him. He goes on to, and I really wish I was making this up, dress up in blackface and commit a mass shooting, a very sizable mass shooting, like over 350 people killed from this shooting in Shinjuku. And no, I'm not making the blackface thing up. You guys can see it for yourselves. During this, Muscle Rider and the two psychics, Sakurai and Sakata, attempt to take him down and stop the shooting, but they are unfortunately killed. Shion then kidnaps Tei in an effort to lure Kei into a standoff, which does work, at which point Shion awakens in the GANTZ room where Kei is waiting for him, Muscle Rider's waiting for him, the two psychics were waiting for them, among some other characters. And their first mission together is to fight a bunch of aliens that are disguised as dinosaurs, which, yes, is as badass as it sounds. Like, GANTZ is bloody cool, but then they're like, hey, psychics, hey, dinosaurs, and then, hey, wait, vampires. Let's just throw some vampires in there. Why not? We might as well. We're already here. Now, at the end of this arc and then into the next arc where the vampires actually get introduced, and I know how it sounds, for a fairly coherent, fairly well thought out sci-fi story to not only include psychics, to not only include dinosaurs, but now to include vampires, but stick with me a moment. This group of vampires begins to launch their assault against the GANTZ team, which sees them caught up in their next mission of killing a bunch of really strong, really large horseman aliens, which also have the ability to kill innocent bystanders. Oh, and did I mention that one of the vampires is Kei Kurono's brother? This feels like something that would have been brought up much earlier in the series, but we're here now. Now, the next couple of arcs are what lead us into phase 2 of the story, and are a veritable turning point for Kei Kurono's character, especially because one of the final phase 1 missions that GANTZ gives everybody is to seek out and kill his girlfriend Tei. And instead of adhering to that mission, Kei decides to take Tei and run away, which unfortunately ends up being a fruitless endeavor, but propels his character forward. Now, I have to give credit where credit is due, because when I was first reading GANTZ, I thought, you know what? If this is only ever going to be alien missions, it's cool. It's very cool to just watch them go after these aliens in this kind of video game fashion, but it's going to get old really quick. And I think Hiroya Oku is such a smart creator that he knew that was going to happen. And I know the inclusion of dinosaurs and psychics and vampires and yada yada yada, that all sounds pretty crazy, especially when you consider the original concept of GANTZ. Wait till you get to phase 2 and 3, especially phase 3. I'll get into that when I get to that video, but wow, was it just like, you have to give credit where credit's due. The direction this manga took, never saw it coming, and that's one of the things I genuinely love about GANTZ. GANTZ exists on the kind of spectrum of anime that appeals to pretty much every teenage boy. It's got fighting, it's got death, it's got blood, it's got gore, it's got gratuitous nudity. It's got, you know, a little something for everybody. And I think because of this, a lot of people look at GANTZ as kind of this mindless, stupid, incoherent sci-fi series. But don't get me wrong, a lot of GANTZ's charm is in how mindless and stupid it is, but I'm using those terms in the best possible way. Beyond this, GANTZ is a surprisingly philosophical manga that covers a lot of really deep concepts, such as how human life has no intrinsic value, how people deal with and cope with survivor's guilt, and if how gods did exist, they would be malevolent and gamify our deaths. And it's sort of interesting and actually quite clever how this series lures you in with hyperviolence, gore, and gratuitous nudity, and leaves you with this unending existential dread that in the weeks that have passed since I finished this manga, I have yet to shake. A lot of the events and the scenes in GANTZ have just genuinely stuck with me past finishing this manga, which is usually a qualifier I use to denote whether a manga is going to be my favorite or not. I can safely say now, after binging the entire manga and now rereading it slowly to see if I missed any smaller details, this is definitely in my top 10. Now, I've seen a lot of criticism of GANTZ and how it portrays women, either as helpless damsels in distress who can't do anything for themselves, or gratuitous sex objects. And I don't agree with that first argument because I don't think it accurately reflects a lot of the women characters in GANTZ who are as badass, if not more badass than the male characters. There are times when, sure, a lot of the women characters do rely on the male characters to help them through the missions, but it kind of goes both ways because there are a lot of the male characters who rely on the women of GANTZ as well. They kind of all rely on each other to get through these missions. But to a point, I do agree with how they are portrayed as sex objects because a lot of them seem to easily fall in love with the male characters to the point of immediately having sex with them. Not to mention the complete underrepresentation of dongs in this manga. This manga is filled to the brim with boobs. Give me dongs. That is going to be cut out of context. 100% guarantee that. One argument I can offer against that, though, is that GANTZ explores the true limit of the human psyche when faced against the palpable threat of death. And one aspect of this is that in moments of desperation, one might turn to sex to be able to cope with these emotions. And while this is just my theory because it's not really explored a whole lot and it's not touched upon much in the manga, this is true of both the male and the women characters, because there's points where Kei Kurono comes out of the missions and goes to his girlfriend, not just for sexual support, but for kind of emotional support as well. Now, Hiroya Oku's art is some of my favorite in manga. I love the way he draws his faces, I love those unique backgrounds he does, and I've always admired the way that he produces manga, which is explored quite a bit in these kind of afterthought pages in the Dark Horse editions. Essentially, he 3D models everything and then draws over it, which I know some people would call cheating, but then again, some people don't have a 37-volume sci-fi epic that is loved the world over. Now, not specifically with Hiroya Oku, but I've seen videos where there's Inio Asano talking about how he 3D models all his backgrounds, and everybody was like, wow, that's cheating. How can he be said he's not that great of an artist after all? Who the hell cares how people produce their art? It's such a weird, nitpicky, stupid criticism of people who just don't really understand art, I guess. Circling back to Hiroya Oku, though, there are so many scenes you would have never guessed were 3D modeled. I would go so far to say that the 3D modeling lends to his ability to just go over the top with a lot of his art, which is, quite frankly, really represented well in Phase 1, but completely off the goddamn wall in Phase 2, and especially in Phase 3. Overall, GANTZ is not for the weak of heart or stomach. When I say there's blood and gore and violence, stuff that I don't particularly shy from, there were scenes that left me a little uneasy and a little queasy. Quite frankly, there were some scenes that were pretty difficult to thumb through. It's all very, very explicit. Nothing is shied away from, and it kind of lends to the overarching idea that life isn't a picnic, so why the hell would you expect death to be? I would definitely recommend GANTZ to anybody who enjoys any of those things, but is also looking for something fairly psychological and at many times cerebral. You'll come for the video game-esque sci-fi world and well-endowed characters, and stay for the existential dread and the belief, the genuine belief that when you die, you wake up in an empty room and a black ball tells you to go kill aliens. That's my religion now, guys. That's what I believe in. See? Look what I spent £5 on at Etsy. This is like a healing stone. The woman I bought this from thought I'm using this for psychic properties. She told me to be well. Well, joke's on you. This is what happens when you die. Anyways, folks, that is it for today's video. Thank you for sitting down with me and talking about Hiroya Oku's GANTZ. This covers Phase 1. I will do another video covering Phases 2 and 3 of the manga. When that comes out, probably by the end of October, I will make it my life's mission. Although realistically, knowing my track record of saying this video is coming out at this time, probably won't happen, but keep an eye out. It will hit your sub boxes soon enough. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Your support means a heck of a lot to me, means that I can make more videos and people will watch them, and I won't lose the will to live. And of course, don't forget to support legal manga. Go to www.wherecanireadmanga.com to get the lowdown on where you, the viewer at home, can read manga for free through a subscription or per volume. And do it all in a way that helps the manga industry, supports the creators and everybody who works in it, and helps us get more manga like this stuff right here. But until next time, folks, happy reading.